The coffee had that specific burnt smell, not the pleasant dark roast kind, but the acrid stench of grounds left too long on a hot plate, molecules breaking down into something bitter and wrong. Alex's tongue touched the roof of their mouth, expecting the familiar cotton-dry texture of hospital air, the chemical ghost of morphine, but instead found the sharp mint of toothpaste, recent and real. Their fingers moved before their mind caught up, touching the cotton pillowcase, the one with the loose thread near the corner. Not the papery slide of hospital linen, not the IV port that had lived in their hand for 3 months. Just skin, unmarked and young. The alarm on the nightstand read 6:47 a.m. in angry red numbers. Outside the window, a garbage truck groaned and hissed its hydraulic symphony. Mrs. Chen from 3B was yelling at someone about parking. Her voice had that specific pitch it only reached before 7 a.m., when she thought volume could shame the world into compliance. The radiator clanked 3 times, paused, then clanked twice more in its familiar rhythm. That irregular heartbeat that had soundtracked 6 years of Alex's 20s in the studio apartment. 6 years. Alex sat up, and the movement felt wrong in a way that made their breath catch. Not wrong like pain. They'd memorized every flavor of pain in those final months, but wrong like wearing clothes from childhood, finding them impossibly small, except reversed. Their body moved too easily. Their lungs pulled air without the wet rattle. Their spine straightened without the grinding complaint of vertebrae that had learned to fail. The room spun, but not from weakness. From recognition, the laptop on the desk, the old MacBook Pro with the dent in the corner from when they'd knocked it off the table reaching for their phone, the dent that wouldn't happen for another 3 weeks. The pile of laundry in the chair, including the blue shirt they'd worn to the interview at that startup, the one that would go bankrupt in 8 months, taking their equity and hope with it. The poster on the wall, a minimalist design of the Golden Gate Bridge in sunset oranges and purples, peeling slightly at the top left corner. They'd thrown that poster away in 2021, during the move to the cheaper apartment, the one with the mold problem, and the neighbor who cooked fish at 2 a.m. Their phone buzzed on the nightstand. Not the newer model with the cracked screen from the last year. The last year? The iPhone 12 with the purple case and the screen protector with a bubble they'd never managed to smooth out. The notification read, "Mom, don't forget family dinner tonight, 6 p.m. sharp. Auntie Wong is bringing Melissa." That name, Melissa. Alex's hand trembled as they picked up the phone. The date on the screen, March 15th, 2019. March 15th, 2019, the day before the email. The email that would arrive at 2:37 p.m. tomorrow, with the subject line, "Congratulations! You've been accepted to Code Catalyst Bootcamp, Cohort 47. The email they would read exactly 7 times, each reading adding another layer to the suffocating weight of family obligation, before typing the words, "I need to withdraw my application." 6 days later, the Cohort. Cohort 47. Alex had memorized those names the way you memorize scars. Sarah Martinez, who'd sat 3 seats away during the interview day, her nervous laugh too loud in the waiting room. She was a senior engineer at Google now, her LinkedIn updated monthly with posts about ML optimization and speaking at conferences. David Kim, who'd spilled coffee on himself and joked about debugging his motor functions, he'd done 5 years at Google, then gone to a startup that got acquired for 8 figures. Rachel Okonkwo, Jordan Black, Thomas Nguyen, all of them. Every single person from Cohort 47 who'd completed the program, they'd all taken the same path, through Google's doors, through opportunities that multiplied like code through elegant recursion. And Alex had typed, "I need to withdraw my application," because Melissa needed help with her wedding planning. Because Auntie Wong had called Mom crying. Because Melissa's fiancé's family was very traditional and very important and needed someone to coordinate with vendors who spoke Mandarin. Because Alex was so good with details and didn't have anything important going on anyway. And it's only 3 months, and family helps family. 3 months that had turned into 6 because the wedding got postponed. 6 months that had turned into a year because Melissa got pregnant and needed help with the baby's shower, and then the nursery, and then the actual baby, and then... But that hadn't happened yet. None of it had happened yet. Alex stood up, and their legs held them without shaking. They walked to the mirror above the dresser, and the face looking back was their face. But younger, unmarked by the particular erosion of disappointment. No premature lines around the mouth from forcing smiles in jobs that felt like slow drowning. No gray hairs at the temples that had come in during the pandemic, during the months of unemployment, of submitting applications into voids, of watching former classmates, not bootcamp classmates because there was no bootcamp, but college classmates, posting about promotions while Alex filed for unemployment for the third time. The face in the mirror was 22 years old, round-cheeked and uncertain, eyes still holding the stupid optimism of someone who thought effort mattered more than timing. The coffee smell intensified. Alex had forgotten to turn off the coffee maker. They never remembered to turn off the coffee maker in the mornings, and the last half-inch of liquid was caramelizing into tar at the bottom of the pot. They walked to the kitchenette. So, movements automatic, and switched off the machine. The silence that followed was profound. No hiss, no gurgle, just the ambient hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city waking up. On the counter, a stack of mail. Alex's fingers shuffled through it. Credit card offer, grocery store flyer, postcard from their college roommate who was traveling through Europe. Emily, who would OD on fentanyl-laced cocaine in 2022 at a party in Brooklyn. Who Alex would learn about through a Facebook post, who was right now, right this moment, alive and eating croissants in Paris. Beneath the mail, a printout. Alex pulled it free, though they already knew what it would say. Code Catalyst Bootcamp, interview day information packet. They'd kept it even after withdrawing. So they kept it in a folder marked Someday that had moved with them through 4 apartments, getting thinner each time as they threw away outdated certifications and irrelevant coursework until only this packet remained. Fossil evidence of an extinct future. Their interview had been on March 2nd. 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago in this timeline, 6 years and 2 weeks ago in their memory. Alex remembered the woman who'd interviewed them, Dr. Patricia Hoffman, with the silver streak in her dark hair and the pin on her lapel that said "Code is Poetry." She'd asked Alex about a project they'd built in college, a simple web scraper for tracking textbook prices, and Alex had explained the architecture with shaking hands, certain they were botching it, certain she could see straight through to their imposter syndrome. The most important thing, doctor, Hoffman had said at the end of the interview, isn't what you know, it's whether you can learn what you don't know. Whether you can sit with confusion until it becomes clarity. She'd smiled then, the kind of smile that felt like permission. I think you can. I'll recommend you for acceptance. The email would come tomorrow at 2:37 p.m. And the call from Mom would come tomorrow at 3:15 p.m. because Auntie Wong would have already called her by then, crying about Melissa's disaster of a wedding planning situation, about how the event coordinator quit, about how they needed someone bilingual and organized and available. Alex looked at their hands, at the fingers that had typed so many lines of code in another life. They'd taught themselves eventually, after the wedding, after Melissa's baby was sleeping through the night and didn't need constant help. They'd done the free online courses, the YouTube tutorials, the documentation deep dives at midnight after long shifts at the office job they'd taken to pay rent. They'd built projects that no one looked at, contributed to open-source repositories that went nowhere, applied to junior developer positions that wanted 5 years of experience for entry-level pay. They'd learned to code the hard way, the slow way, the way that left them always one step behind, always trying to catch up to people who'd had boot camps, who'd had structure, who'd had Cohort 47. The apartment was getting brighter as morning settled in. Light slanted through the window, catching dust motes in suspension, each one floating in its predetermined path until disturbed. Alex's phone buzzed again. Ryan. Yo, you still down for the gym at 8? Leg day waits for no one. Ryan, who would move to Austin in 2020 for a job at a startup, who Alex would lose touch with during the pandemic, who would send one message in 2023. Hey man, long time, how you been? That Alex had never responded to because what was there to say? That they'd spent the last 4 years treading water, that they'd finally landed a tech job that paid $55K and felt grateful for it? Alex's fingers moved across the screen. Can't today, something came up. Rain check? They set the phone down and walked to the laptop. The dent wasn't there yet, wouldn't be for 3 weeks, and the screen opened without the resistance that would develop after the hinge started to fail. The desktop background was a photo from graduation. Alex and their parents and their sister Jenny, everyone smiling like the future was a gift they couldn't wait to unwrap. Jenny, who would move to Singapore in 2021, who would video call less and less frequently until it was just birthday messages and holiday texts, who would say, during one particularly honest late-night call in 2023, I had to get away, from all the family drama, from always being needed for someone else's crisis. But that hadn't happened yet either. Alex opened their email. The inbox was a time capsule. Newsletters from companies that had since gone bankrupt, promotional emails for events that had already happened, messages from people who were still alive, still employed, still themselves. And there, in the drafts folder, an email they'd written but never sent to admissions@codecatalyst.com. Subject: re-interview follow-up. Draft saved March 14th, 2019, 11:47 p.m. Dear Admissions Committee, I wanted to reach out regarding my interview on March 2nd. I know you said decisions would be sent out this week, and I just wanted to reiterate my strong interest in the program. Code Catalyst represents exactly the kind of intensive, practical learning environment I've been looking for. I've been teaching myself web development for the past year, but I know there's a difference between solitary learning and being part of a cohort, learning alongside others, being challenged and supported by instructors who understand not just coding, but how to teach coding. Whatever the decision, I'm grateful for the opportunity to interview. Doctor? Hoffman's comment about sitting with confusion until it becomes clarity has stayed with me. I think that's the essence of debugging, of learning, of growth. Sincerely, Alex Chen. They'd never sent it because it had felt too desperate, too needy. They'd convinced themselves it wouldn't make a difference, that the decision was already made. The coffee maker ticked as it cooled. Outside, a car alarm went off. Someone screamed at it in Spanish, and it went silent. Alex stood up and walked to the window. The city spread out below, all those lives happening in parallel, all those decisions being made in bedrooms and kitchens and subway cars, each one a branch point, a fork in the road that seemed small until you looked back and realized how far the paths had diverged. There was no rational explanation for this. For waking up in a past that should be fixed, immutable, already lived. The last thing Alex remembered from their first life, their real life, their other life, was the hospice room, the morphine drip, Jenny crying in the chair by the window, the nurse with the kind eyes checking vitals that were failing one by one. The cancer had been aggressive, the kind with a hyphenated name that doctors said quickly, as if speed could soften the diagnosis. Alex had been 28 years old, lying in that bed, thinking about all the code they'd never written, all the projects they'd never built, all the versions of themselves they'd never become. And their last coherent thought, before the morphine took them under for the final time, had been about Cohort 47. About Sarah Martinez's LinkedIn profile, which they'd looked at on their phone until their fingers got too weak to scroll. About the alternative timeline where they'd said no to Melissa's wedding, where they'd chosen differently. And then the smell of burnt coffee, the garbage truck, Mrs. Chen yelling, the alarm reading 6:47 a.m. on March 15th, 2019. There were no rules for this, no instruction manual for waking up in your own past. All the fiction Alex had ever read about time travel involved machines or magic or technobabble explanations. This was none of those things. This was just opening their eyes in a morning that had already happened and finding it unspooled before them again, a road they'd walked before being offered fresh for a second journey. The rational thing would be to question their sanity. To consider that maybe the morphine had created an elaborate hallucination, that they were actually still in the hospice bed dreaming this, but the details were too sharp, too specific. The loose thread on the pillowcase, the exact pitch of Mrs. Chen's voice, the bubble in the screen protector. You couldn't hallucinate things you'd forgotten you knew. And beneath the confusion, beneath the vertigo of impossible circumstance, there was something else. A fierce, bright ember of possibility. The email would come tomorrow at 2:37 p.m. Mom would call at 3:15 p.m., and Alex would have to choose. They pulled up their calendar. Today's date was circled in red with the note, Coffee with Marcus, 10 a.m. Marcus, their former TA from sophomore year algorithms class, who'd offered to introduce them to someone at his company. The coffee meeting that had led to an informational interview, that had led to a job offer for a junior analyst position that Alex had accepted because they'd already withdrawn from the bootcamp by then, because they'd needed income, because the analyst job paid $50K and came with benefits and seemed like the responsible choice. Marcus, who Alex hadn't thought about in years, whose LinkedIn they'd looked at once during a period of pandemic insomnia and seen he was now a CTO somewhere in Seattle. There was a knock at the door. Alex froze. They weren't expecting anyone. The mail carrier didn't usually come until afternoon, and, "Alex, you awake? I brought bagels." That voice. Alex's hand went to their chest, feeling their hearts speed up. "Alex, come on, I know you're up. I can hear you walking around. Let me in." "I got the everything bagels from that place you like. The one with the—" Alex opened the door. Danny stood there, holding a paper bag spotted with grease, wearing the vintage Nirvana t-shirt and the ripped jeans, and the expression of someone who'd walked 15 blocks in the morning cold, but didn't mind because friendship was worth frozen ears. Danny, who would die in a car accident in November 2019. Who would be 22 forever? Who Alex had mourned at a funeral where everyone kept saying, "At least it was quick, like speed was a mercy." "Dude, you look like you've seen a ghost," Danny said, pushing past into the apartment. "Which, fair, it's way too early for functional consciousness. But I had a hypothesis about the correlation between bagel quality and problem-solving ability, and I needed a test subject." Alex couldn't speak. They were staring at Danny, alive, warm, moving, talking, and their throat had closed up. "Okay, seriously, are you good?" Danny set the bag on the counter and turned, and their face shifted from amusement to concern. "Alex? Hey, what's wrong?" "Nothing," Alex managed. Bad dream. Weird morning." "Want to talk about it?" "No, yes, I don't know." Alex pressed their palms against their eyes. "Danny, do you ever think about how every choice we make creates a different future? Like sliding doors, butterfly effect, all that?" "Whoa, that's deep for before caffeine." Danny pulled 2 bagels from the bag and started rummaging through Alex's cabinets for plates. "But yeah, I mean, sure, every choice matters. That's why I chose everything bagels over plain. The everything bagel timeline is clearly superior to the plain bagel timeline." "I'm serious." Okay. Danny found plates, started splitting a bagel. "Yeah, I think about it sometimes. Like, what if I'd gone to Berkeley instead of staying here? What if I'd majored in English instead of CS? But you can't live in the what-ifs, man. You'll drive yourself crazy. You can only move forward from where you are." Move forward from where you are. But where was Alex? In a present that was past, in a morning that had already been lived, standing in a kitchen with someone who was supposed to be dead. "Do you believe in second chances?" Alex asked. Danny paused, holding the cream cheese knife midair. "Like, philosophically? Or are we talking about that bug you've been trying to fix in your portfolio site? Philosophically? Then, yeah. I guess. I mean, we fuck up all the time, right? The trick is learning from it, making different choices next time." Danny spread cream cheese with careful precision. "Why? Did something happen?" "I have a choice to make. Tomorrow. And I already know, I think I know, what the right answer is. But it's going to piss people off. Family people." "Ah." Danny handed Alex a plated bagel. "The eternal struggle. Let me guess. They want you to do something that's good for them, but bad for you, and they're framing it as family obligation." Alex bit into the bagel. It tasted exactly as they remembered. The perfect ratio of chew to crisp, the tang of the cream cheese, the complexity of salt and onion and garlic. They'd forgotten this taste. They'd forgotten a lot of things about the before times. The things that seemed too small to matter until they were gone. "Something like that," Alex said. "Well, here's my take, which you didn't ask for, but you're getting anyway." Danny leaned against the counter, crossed their arms. "You can't live your life for other people, even family people, especially family people sometimes, because they're the ones who know exactly which buttons to push. You've got to, what's that thing on airplane safety announcements? Put your own oxygen mask on first. That feels selfish. No, it feels like survival. There's a difference." Danny took a bite of their bagel, chewed thoughtfully. "Look, I don't know what choice you're facing, but I know you. You're going to overthink it. You're going to spiral. You're going to imagine every possible bad outcome. So let me ask you this. If you knew, absolutely knew, that making the choice that's right for you wouldn't destroy your relationships, wouldn't make you a bad person, wouldn't cause irreparable harm, would you still hesitate?" Would they? In the first timeline, Alex had hesitated, had chosen obligation over ambition, family peace over personal growth, had told themselves it was temporary, that there would be other boot camps, other chances. But there hadn't been. Not really. The technology landscape had shifted, the bootcamp bubble had burst, the pandemic had happened. By the time Alex was free of family obligations, the window had closed. They'd had to take the long road, the hard road, the road that led to a hospice bed at 28. "No," Alex said. "I wouldn't hesitate." "Then there's your answer?" Danny made it sound simple. But Danny had never lived the first timeline, had never felt the weight of family disappointment, had never been on the receiving end of Auntie Wong's crying phone calls, or Mom's disappointed sighs, or Melissa's accusations of selfishness. Danny had never lived past November 2019. The thought hit Alex like cold water. Danny had 8 months left. 8 months of vintage t-shirts and bad jokes and philosophical discussions over bagels. 8 months before a drunk driver ran a red light on a Tuesday evening. Before a phone call that started with, "I'm so sorry to tell you this." Before a funeral where Alex had stood in the back because they couldn't handle seeing the casket. "Danny," Alex said suddenly, "do you still bike to work?" "What? Yeah, why?" "I want you to promise me something. November 12th. Don't bike home that day. Take the bus, or call an Uber, or walk." But don't bike." Danny laughed. "Dude, that's like 8 months away. How am I supposed to remember? Please, I'm serious. November 12th, promise me." Something in Alex's tone made Danny's smile fade. They studied Alex's face, and their expression shifted into something more serious. "Okay," Danny said slowly. "November 12th. No biking. I'll put it in my calendar, but Alex, are you sure you're okay? This isn't just about a bad dream, is it?" Alex wanted to tell them everything. Wanted to explain about the hospital bed and the morphine and waking up in a past that shouldn't exist. Wanted to grab Danny's shoulders and say, "You're going to die. You're going to die in 8 months, and I can't let that happen again." But they couldn't, because Danny would think they were crazy. Because there was no framework for this conversation. No shared reality where what Alex was saying made sense. "I'm okay," Alex lied, "or I will be. I just need to make some better choices this time around." "This time around?" "In life, in general, going forward." Danny nodded slowly, still looking concerned, but they let it go. They finished their bagels in companionable silence, and then Danny checked their phone and swore. "Shit, I'm going to be late for my 9 a.m. You good if I run?" "Yeah, thanks for the bagels." "Anytime." Danny paused at the door. "Hey, Alex, whatever choice you're facing, I believe in you. You're smarter than you think you are and braver than you give yourself credit for. Trust your gut." And then they were gone, thundering down the stairs, and Alex was alone again. The apartment felt emptier now. Alex washed the plates, dried them, put them away. Outside, knew the city was fully awake now, the sound of traffic and construction, and 1,000 lives in motion. They sat down at the laptop again, opened a browser, typed Cohort 47 code catalyst into the search bar. In the first timeline, they'd done this obsessively, had tracked the cohort's progress through their public GitHub repositories, their LinkedIn updates, their conference talks, had watched from the outside as they built careers, built networks, built the kind of momentum that came from being in the right place at the right time with the right people. But this was 2019, and Cohort 47 didn't exist yet. Wouldn't exist until March 16th, when the acceptance emails went out. Wouldn't coalesce into a unit until April 1st, when the program started. Wouldn't become legendary until later, when the placement stats came out. 94% employment rate. An average starting salary $112K. Companies including Google, Facebook, Amazon, Airbnb. Alex knew the numbers by heart, had memorized them the way you memorize evidence of roads not taken. They closed the browser, opened a new document, started typing. Things I know about the future. The email comes tomorrow at 2:37 p.m. Mom calls at 3:15 p.m. If I say yes to Melissa's wedding, I lose Code Catalyst. If I lose Code Catalyst, I take the analyst job with Marcus's company. The analyst job leads to a career path that's stable but unfulfilling. Danny dies on November 12th, 2019. Biking home from work. Cohort 47 all gets jobs at major tech companies. Emily dies in 2022. I get cancer in 2024. I die in 2025, at age 28, having never become the person I wanted to be. Alex stared at the list. It felt both absurd and undeniable. A roadmap of disasters, both personal and cosmic, that they alone could see. They added another line, things I can change, tomorrow's choice, Danny's route home. The question mark stared back at them. Because that was the real question, wasn't it? How much could be changed? Was the future fixed, rails that Alex would slide along no matter what they did? Or was it fluid, responsive, vulnerable to the butterfly effect of different choices? There was only one way to find out. Alex spent the rest of the day in a strange state of suspended animation. They went to coffee with Marcus at 10 a.m., and it was surreal, seeing him younger, hearing him talk enthusiastically about the company he was at, the company Alex knew would lay off half its staff in 2020, including Marcus. They nodded and smiled and asked questions. And when Marcus said, "I could probably get you an interview if you're interested," Alex said, "Let me think about it," instead of, "Yes, please, I need a job." They went to the gym, even though they'd told Ryan they couldn't, because their body was vibrating with excess energy, with the need to do something physical to anchor themselves in this impossible present. They ran on the treadmill until their lungs burned, and the burning felt good, felt real, felt like proof that this wasn't a dream. They called Jenny, who picked up on the third ring. "Hey, what's up? This is weird you never call in the middle of the day." "Just wanted to hear your voice," Alex said. "Okay, that's even weirder. Are you dying?" "Yes. No, not yet. Not this time." "I'm fine. Just feeling grateful, I guess. For family." There was a pause. Then Jenny said softer, "Oh, did you talk to Mom about tonight? About the dinner thing?" "Not yet. She's going to bring up Melissa. Fair warning." "I know. And Auntie Wong is going to cry. She always cries when she wants something." "I know. Just don't let them guilt trip you into anything, okay? You've got your own life to live." Alex closed their eyes. In the first timeline, Jenny had said the same thing, and Alex had ignored the advice, had thought they were being noble, being helpful, being the good family member who showed up when needed. "I won't," Alex said. "Not this time?" "Good. See you tonight." "And Alex?" "Yeah? I mean it. You matter too. Not just Melissa, not just whatever crisis Auntie Wang is manufacturing. You." After they hung up, Alex sat on their bed and cried. Not from sadness exactly, but from the overwhelming weight of getting a chance that shouldn't exist, of having information that felt like both a gift and a burden. The day crawled toward evening. Alex showered, changed clothes, practiced saying, "No, I'm sorry, I can't help with the wedding" in the mirror until the words stopped sounding like violence. At 5:45 p.m., they left for their parents' house. The smell hit Alex before they even opened the door. Ginger and scallions, the specific combination their mother used for fish, mixed with the sweetness of red-braised pork and the subtle fragrance of jasmine rice. Comfort food, strategic food, the kind of meal deployed when difficult conversations were anticipated. Mom opened the door wearing the apron with the faded rooster print, the one she'd had since Alex was in elementary school. Her hair was pulled back in the same loose bun, a few gray strands escaping around her temples. Fewer gray strands than Alex remembered from the last time they'd seen her in the hospice room, when she'd held their hand and told them to stop fighting, to let go, that it was okay. "You're early," Mom said, surprised. "Dinner's not ready yet." "I can help." Alex stepped inside, slipped off their shoes. The house smelled like every childhood memory, cooking oil and Tiger Balm, and the specific detergent Mom had used for 30 years. "Where's Dad?" "In the garage, pretending to fix something." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You know him. Any excuse to avoid the pre-dinner small talk." Alex followed Mom into the kitchen. The counters were covered with dishes in various stages of completion. A whole steamed fish with ginger slivers arranged on top, the pork belly in its dark sauce, stir-fried greens, a soup with winter melon and pork bones. "This is a lot of food," Alex observed. "Auntie Wong and Melissa are coming, and Jenny, of course. So 5 people. Mom started arranging the fish on a serving platter with careful precision. "Besides, leftovers are good. You can take some home." The kitchen clock read 5:52 p.m. Alex remembered this dinner with painful clarity, the way it would unfold in stages. First the small talk, then the meal itself, then the tea afterward when Auntie Wong would start crying about Melissa's wedding crisis, and Mom would look meaningfully at Alex, and the trap would close with the soft inevitability of family obligation. "Mom, I need to tell you something." Mom didn't look up from her plating. "If Auntie Wong asks me to help with Melissa's wedding planning, I'm going to say no." Now Mom looked up, her hands stilled on the serving spoon. "What?" "I can't help with the wedding. I have other commitments." "What commitments? You're between jobs right now. You have time." Alex took a breath. This was it. The first fork in the road, the first chance to choose differently. I got into a coding bootcamp, Code Catalyst. It's a really competitive program, and it starts in April. If I do the wedding planning for Melissa, I'll have to give up my spot. Mom set down the spoon. Her expression was unreadable, the face she made when calculating social implications, weighing obligations. You didn't tell me you applied to a boot camp? I wasn't sure I'd get in. And you did? I will, tomorrow. They're sending out decisions tomorrow. So you don't know for sure. I know. Alex met their mother's eyes. And when I get in, I'm going to accept. I'm going to do the program. And I can't do that if I'm helping with Melissa's wedding for 3 months. 3 months? Mom repeated. It's just 3 months, Alex, and it's family. Melissa needs help. Auntie Wang is beside herself. The wedding coordinator quit. And you know Melissa, she can't handle stress. And with the baby coming... What baby? Mom blinked. What? Alex's mind raced. Had they gotten the timeline wrong? Melissa wasn't pregnant yet, not in March 2019. That didn't happen until... There's no baby yet, Mom said slowly. But you know they're trying. Tim, and Melissa wants to have the wedding before she gets pregnant, and the venue is only available in June, and... She stopped, frowned. Why are you being so difficult about this? It's just 3 months. It's not just 3 months, Mom. It's my future. This boot camp, it's my chance to actually build a career in tech. A real career, not just treading water. You make it sound like helping family is drowning. That's not what I... Alex stopped, tried again. I love Melissa. I want her wedding to be beautiful, but I can't sacrifice my own opportunities for her event planning crisis. There are other people who can help. There are professional coordinators who charge money we don't have, who don't speak Mandarin, who don't understand our family's expectations. Mom picked up the serving spoon again, her movements sharp now, agitated. I thought we raised you to care about family, to show up when people need you. You did. I do. But I also have to show up for myself. The kitchen was silent except for the sound of the exhaust fan and the bubbling of soup on the stove. Mom's jaw was tight, her eyes bright with something that wasn't quite anger, but wasn't quite not anger either. Your sister gave up her promotion to help when Grandma was sick, Mom said quietly. The guilt landed like a punch. Because it was true, Jenny had put her career on hold for 6 months to help care for Grandma in her final year. And Alex had been in college then, conveniently far away, conveniently unable to help, but that was different. That was end-of-life care. That was... Melissa's wedding isn't a medical emergency, Alex said. No, but family is family, and when we need each other, we're supposed to be there. The door opened, voices in the hallway, Jenny's laugh, and then Auntie Wang's higher-pitched greeting, and Melissa's breathy, "Oh my God, it smells so good in here." Mom looked at Alex one more time, and her expression was complicated, layered with disappointment and surprise, and something that might have been hurt. "We'll talk about this later," she said. "After dinner, when everyone's had a chance to eat." Then she was moving toward the hallway, her face transforming into a welcoming smile, and Alex was left standing in the kitchen with the knowledge that the first blow had been struck, but the battle was far from over. Dinner was an exercise in surreality. Alex sat at the familiar table, the round one with the lazy Susan in the center, the one with the slight wobble that Dad kept meaning to fix, and watched everyone interact with the double vision of someone seeing them as they were and as they would become. Jenny, 25 years old, fresh-faced and complaining about her boss, not yet worn down by the corporate politics that would eventually drive her to Singapore. Dad making his usual bad jokes, not yet showing the tremor in his hands that would lead to the Parkinson's diagnosis in 2022. Auntie Wang dabbing at her eyes with a tissue even before the main crisis conversation started, not yet dealing with the breast cancer scare that would come in 2021. And Melissa. Melissa at 27, her engagement ring catching the light every time she reached for a dish. So talking about the wedding venue and the florist and the photographer with the kind of intensity that suggested this was the most important project in the history of human endeavor. And then the coordinator just quit, Melissa was saying, her voice rising. Just sent an email saying she was taking a job in Seattle and couldn't continue with my wedding. After I'd already paid her the deposit. After we'd already planned everything. Can you get your deposit back? Jenny asked practically. That's not the point. The wedding is in 3 months. Do you know how hard it is to find a good coordinator with 3 months' notice? Have you tried looking for? I've tried everything. Everyone good is already booked. And Mom, Melissa turned to Auntie Wang, who immediately started crying on cue. Mom says we might have to postpone. But we can't postpone. The venue is only available in June, and Jason's parents are already flying in from Taiwan, and the invitations are already sent out, and she stopped to look directly at Alex. Unless someone who cares about family could step up and help. The table went quiet. Everyone turned to look at Alex. This was the moment. In the first timeline, Alex had felt the weight of all those eyes, had felt the expectation and the obligation, and the unspoken threat that saying no would mark them as selfish, ungrateful, not a team player, had felt themselves crumbling under the pressure, agreeing before they'd even fully thought it through. But Alex had died once already. They'd felt their body fail, felt opportunities slip away, felt the regret of a life half-lived. The weight of those eyes couldn't compare to the weight of lying in a hospice bed at 28, knowing they'd traded their future for someone else's party. I can't, Alex said clearly. I'm starting a coding bootcamp in April. Melissa's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, confusion, anger, hurt. She settled on indignant. A bootcamp? Alex, this is my wedding. I understand that, and I hope it's beautiful, but I can't be your coordinator. Can't or won't. Both. Auntie Wang's crying intensified. Mom looked at Alex with an expression that would have made statues feel guilty. Dad suddenly became very interested in his rice bowl. I don't understand, Melissa said. This boot camp, it's just classes, right? Can't you do it another time? There are always more boot camps. Actually, there aren't. Alex kept their voice calm. This is a very specific program with a very specific cohort. If I miss this one, I miss the opportunity. What opportunity? To learn computer stuff? You can learn that online. For free. It's not the same thing. Okay, but my wedding, my once-in-a-lifetime wedding, that's actually important. Jenny made a small sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. Mom shot her a look. Melissa? Alex said carefully, I'm not saying your wedding isn't important. I'm saying that my career is also important, and I have to make choices that prioritize my future. By abandoning your family when we need you. That's not what it is, though. Melissa's eyes were getting shiny now. When I needed help with my college applications, you helped. When I needed a place to stay after my roommate drama, what, you let me crash on your couch? But now, when I need you for the biggest day of my life, you're too busy? The guilt hit harder this time, because those things were true. Alex had helped Melissa before, had been the reliable older cousin, the one who showed up. But they'd also helped Melissa with her apartment search in 2019, and her baby registry in 2020, and her childcare crisis in 2021, and her job applications in 2022, had helped until there was nothing left to give, until their own life had become a series of postponements and maybes and next times. I've helped you a lot, Alex said, and I hope I can help you in the future. But not this time, not with this. So you're just going to let my wedding fall apart. Your wedding isn't going to fall apart. You'll find another coordinator, or you'll do it yourself. Or your bridesmaids will help, or my bridesmaids have jobs, real jobs. They can't just take 3 months off to plan my wedding. Neither can I. Melissa stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You know what? Fine. Be selfish. Do your little boot camp, but don't expect me to be there for you when you need something. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Auntie Wang followed, still crying, throwing reproachful looks at Alex over her shoulder. The front door slammed. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad cleared his throat. Well, that went poorly. Alex, Mom said, and her voice was tight, controlled. Was that really necessary? Yes, Alex said. It was. You could have been kinder, more diplomatic. I was diplomatic. I said no clearly and explained why. You embarrassed Melissa in front of everyone. I didn't embarrass her. She embarrassed herself by expecting me to give up my opportunities for her event planning. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line. She stood up, started collecting dishes with sharp, aggressive movements. Jenny caught Alex's eye across the table and gave a tiny nod. Dad said, Your mother and I are going to clean up. You two should probably go. Alex helped clear the table in silence. When they brought dishes to the kitchen, Mom didn't look at them. Just kept scrubbing a pot with more force than necessary, the water running too hot, steam rising around her reddened hands. Mom, not now, Alex. I'm too angry to talk to you right now." So Alex left. Jenny followed them out, and they stood on the porch in the cooling evening air. "Well," Jenny said, "you certainly made a choice. You think I was wrong? No, I think you were right. But that doesn't mean it doesn't suck." Jenny pulled her jacket tighter. "They're going to make you feel guilty about this for months, maybe years. You know that, right?" "I know. And Melissa's going to tell everyone that you ruined her wedding. The wedding that hasn't even happened yet? Logic has no place in family drama." Jenny smiled slightly. "But for what it's worth, I'm proud of you. It took guts to say no." Alex thought about the first timeline, about the Alex who'd said yes, who'd spent 3 months coordinating vendors and translating between English and Mandarin and managing Melissa's stress-induced meltdowns. That Alex had been praised for being selfless, for being family-oriented, for stepping up. That Alex had also died at 28, full of regret. "Thanks," Alex said. "Come on, I'll walk you to your car." They walked in comfortable silence. Then Jenny said, "This boot camp, it's really important to you?" "More than I can explain." "Then fuck 'em. Do it. You only get one life." If only she knew. Alex drove home through familiar streets, watching the city lights blur past. Their phone buzzed with texts. Mom, Auntie Wong, even Melissa, but they didn't look. Not yet. Not until they were home, safe in their apartment, ready to handle the aftermath. But when they pulled into their parking spot, their phone buzzed with a different notification. An email from admissions@codecatalyst.com. Subject, Code Catalyst Bootcamp. Important update. Sent March 15th, 2019, 9:47 p.m. Alex's hand shook as they opened it. "Dear Alex Chen, we're reaching out ahead of our scheduled decision release tomorrow with some important information. Due to an unexpected software error, a small number of acceptance notifications were sent out prematurely this evening. We want to assure you that this does not affect your application status, and official decisions will still be released tomorrow, March 16th at 2:30 p.m. Pacific. We apologize for any confusion this may cause. Sincerely, Code Catalyst Admissions Team, not an acceptance, not a rejection. Just a notification about an error that Alex hadn't seen in the first timeline. That must have been sent to everyone. That meant nothing except Alex had told their family about the boot camp before officially getting in, had burned bridges before having confirmation, had made a choice based on knowledge from a future that might not unfold the same way this time. They sat in the car in the dark, watching their breath fog the windows. And for the first time since waking up in their 22-year-old body, Alex felt truly afraid. Alex didn't sleep that night. They lay in bed watching shadows move across the ceiling, tracking the passage of time by the changes in street noise. The late-night traffic thinning to nothing, the garbage trucks starting their 4 a.m. rounds, the first commuters revving engines at 5:30, the city gradually waking up. Their phone sat on the nightstand, face down, silent. They'd turned off notifications after the 15th angry text from Melissa, after Mom's 3-paragraph message about family loyalty, after Auntie Wong's voice memo that was mostly crying. So, the only message they'd read was from Jenny. "Don't let them bully you. You did the right thing." But had they? In the first timeline, Alex had known they'd been accepted before they withdrew. The acceptance email at 2:37 p.m., the choice made in the following days. This time, they'd jumped the gun, had told everyone about a boot camp they might not even get into. What if the timeline had changed? What if their choice at dinner had somehow rippled backward, altered the admissions decision, closed the door they'd barely glimpsed opening? At 6 a.m., Alex gave up on sleep. They made coffee, remembering to turn off the machine this time, and sat at their laptop. Opened their email. The inbox was a minefield of family drama, but buried beneath it was the Code Catalyst email from last night. 2:30 p.m. Pacific. That was 5:30 p.m. Eastern. Alex looked at the clock. 6:07 a.m. That meant 11 hours and 23 minutes until they knew for sure. They opened a new browser tab, typed Cohort 47 Code Catalyst again, even though they knew it would return nothing, because Cohort 47 didn't exist yet, wouldn't exist until today, when the acceptances went out. Except, the search returned something new. A Reddit thread posted 3 hours ago, timestamped 3:14 a.m. Title, "Did anyone else get a weird email from Code Catalyst?" Alex's hands went cold. They clicked. _coder 2019. Got this email saying some acceptances went out early by mistake? but I didn't get an acceptance, so I'm confused. Are they saying I'm rejected? Or is this just covering their asses because they accidentally sent rejections? Sarah_codes. I got the same email. I think it's just a blanket message to everyone who applied. Probably one of their scripts misfired and they're being proactive about it. DavidKim_dev. Yeah, I got it too. Kinda stressed me out, TBH. Like now I have to wait another 12 plus hours wondering if I was one of the premature acceptances or if I'm still in limbo. Rachel_O_dev. Same. Though I did see on their Instagram that they posted something about exciting news coming tomorrow, so at least we know decisions are actually coming. Alex read through the thread twice. The usernames meant nothing now, but they would. Sarah_codes was Sarah Martinez. DavidKim_dev was David Kim. These were people who, in a few hours, would receive acceptances. People who would become Cohort 47. People whose paths were about to intersect with Alex's, if the timeline held, if the email came, if everything was still on track. They kept scrolling. More anxious applicants, more speculation, more people treating this as a normal decision day, not knowing that this cohort, this specific grouping of people, would go on to extraordinary things. At 7 a.m., Alex's phone rang. Mom. They let it go to voicemail. At 7:15 a.m., a text from Dad. Your mother is very upset. Call her. At 8 a.m., Danny texted. Coffee? I'm freaking out about this project deadline and need to complain to someone who won't judge me. Alex stared at the message. Danny, who had no idea they were supposed to be dead, who had 8 months left, unless Alex could prevent it, who had casually promised to not bike on November 12th because Alex had asked, even though it must have seemed like the weirdest request. Can't today? Alex typed. Tomorrow? Tomorrow works. Hey, you doing okay? You seemed weird yesterday. I'm fine, just dealing with family stuff. Oof, say no more. Family stuff is the worst. Let me know if you need to vent. Alex set the phone down, got up, paced the apartment. The walls felt too close, the ceiling too low, the air too thick. They needed to move, needed to do something with their hands, needed to stop refreshing their email every 3 minutes. They went to the gym, ran until their muscles screamed, came home and showered, made food they didn't eat, opened their laptop and tried to work on a side project, but their brain was static, unable to focus on anything except the clock. 11:47 a.m. 5 hours and 43 minutes. At noon, their phone rang again. An unknown number. Alex almost didn't answer, but something made them pick up. Hello? Hi, is this Alex Chen? A woman's voice. Professional, warm. Yes? This is Patricia Hoffman from Code Catalyst. I'm calling regarding your application. Alex's heart stopped. This hadn't happened in the first timeline. Dr. Hoffman hadn't called. The acceptance had come via email, clean and simple. No phone call, no. I wanted to reach out personally, Dr. Hoffman continued, because your interview left quite an impression on our team. You know, the way you talked about your textbook price scraper, the passion you showed for solving real problems, that's exactly the kind of mindset we're looking for. Thank you. That means a lot. I'm sure you saw our email last night about the technical error. I want to assure you that it doesn't affect your application in any way. We're still on track to send official decisions this afternoon. Okay, Alex said, because they couldn't think of anything else to say. I'm calling because I wanted to give you a heads up. You're going to be receiving good news today. We'd love to have you in Cohort 47. The room tilted. Alex sat down hard on their bed. I'm in. The official email will come out at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time as planned. But yes, you're in. Congratulations, Alex. I hope you'll accept our offer. I will. Yes. Absolutely yes. Dr. Hoffman laughed. I love the enthusiasm. We'll talk more in the email, but I wanted to personally let you know. You earned this spot. I'm excited to see what you build with us. After they hung up, Alex sat in silence for a long time. The acceptance was real. The path was open. The future was there, waiting, exactly as they remembered it would be, except it wasn't exactly as they remembered because Doctor. So Hoffman hadn't called in the first timeline. This was new, different, a variable that had changed. What else might be different? At 2:30 p.m. Pacific, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, Alex's email pinged. Subject, congratulations. You've been accepted to Code Catalyst Bootcamp, Cohort 47. They read it 3 times, even though they'd already gotten the news, even though Dr. Hoffman had already confirmed it. The words were the same as they remembered. Acceptance, cohort number, start date of April 1st, tuition information, housing resources, a schedule of pre-bootcamp prep work. At the bottom, please confirm your acceptance by March 22nd. 6 days to decide. In the first timeline, Alex had agonized over those 6 days, had reread the email obsessively, had made spreadsheets comparing the bootcamp option versus the job with Marcus's company, had called Jenny for advice, who'd said, do what makes you happy, which was no help at all. And then Mom had called on day 4, crying about how Melissa was having panic attacks about the wedding, and Alex had typed the withdrawal email that same night. This time, Alex opened the reply window and typed, Dear Code Catalyst Admissions, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm thrilled to accept my place in Cohort 47. I look forward to starting on April 1st. Best regards, Alex Chen sent. Just like that. No agonizing, no spreadsheets, no waiting for family pressure to mount. Just a decision made cleanly, quickly, before guilt could complicate it. Alex's phone immediately started buzzing. The Reddit thread had exploded with acceptances, rejections, people celebrating, people commiserating. They scrolled through. Sarah_codes. I got in. Cohort 47, here I come. Davidkim_dev. Accepted. Can't believe this is real. Rachel_O_dev. Yes, see you all in April. The future was assembling itself in real time. These strangers would become classmates, colleagues, friends, would struggle through the same problem sets, debug the same code, support each other through the intensity of the program. And Alex would be there with them. Their phone rang. Mom. Alex took a breath and answered. I got into the boot camp, they said before Mom could speak. The acceptance came today. I'm doing it. Silence on the other end. Then, Alex, we need to talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I already accepted. You already, without even discussing it with family? It's my decision, Mom, my life. Your life that exists in the context of a family that needs you right now. Melissa will find another coordinator, or she'll plan it herself, or she'll postpone. Those are all options. You don't understand. Mom's voice was tight. Auntie Wong called me this morning. Melissa had a panic attack last night. A real one, Alex. She couldn't breathe. Jason had to take her to the emergency room. The guilt hit like a wave. Alex closed their eyes. That's not my fault, they said, but their voice wavered. Isn't it? You knew she was stressed. You knew the wedding was important to her, and you chose your boot camp over her well-being. That's not fair. I didn't cause her panic attack. Her inability to handle stress caused her panic attack. Alex, no, Mom. I'm sorry Melissa's struggling. I really am. But I can't set myself on fire to keep her warm. That's not how this works. Family is important. I know that. But I'm part of this family too. And my needs matter too. Mom was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. When did you become so selfish? The word landed like a slap. Alex felt their face flush, their throat tighten. I'm not selfish for having boundaries. You're selfish for not caring how your choices affect other people. I do care, but I also care about myself, and I'm sorry if that's uncomfortable for you, but I'm not going to apologize for it. Then I don't know what to say to you right now. Then don't say anything. I'll talk to you later, when you're ready to listen instead of just judge. Alex hung up. Their hands were shaking. The apartment was very quiet. Outside, the city hummed with its usual noise. But inside, everything was still. They'd done it. Burned the bridge, made the choice, stood their ground. And it felt terrible. Alex had forgotten this part. From the first timeline, the immediate aftermath of hard decisions. The way guilt lived in your chest like a stone, the way you second-guessed yourself even when you knew you were right. But they'd also forgotten what came after. In the first timeline, Alex had caved, had withdrawn from the boot camp, had helped with the wedding, had been praised for being selfless. And in the moment, that praise had felt good, had felt like vindication, but 3 months had turned into 6 months, 6 into a year, and the praise had faded, but the missed opportunity had stayed, calcifying into regret. This time, the guilt would fade, but the opportunity would remain. That was the trade. That was the choice. Alex's phone buzzed. A text from Jenny. Mom called me crying. Said you were breaking up the family. I told her she was being dramatic. How are you holding up? Honestly, not great, but I'll survive. Want company? I can bring wine and bad movies. Rain check. I need to sit with this for a bit. Okay, but Alex, I meant what I said. I'm proud of you. Most people cave to family pressure. You didn't. That takes strength. Or stubbornness. Same thing, different framing. Take care of yourself tonight, okay? Do something nice for yourself. You earned it. Alex smiled despite everything. Jenny was right. They had earned it. Not just the bootcamp acceptance, but the right to make choices for themselves. Where they ordered Thai food, their favorite pad CW from the place that would close during the pandemic, and ate it while watching a movie they'd seen a dozen times. The familiarity was soothing. The food tasted exactly as they remembered, which was a small miracle in itself. At 11 p.m., they lay in bed scrolling through the Code Catalyst acceptance thread on Reddit, reading messages from their future classmates. Sarah_codes. Who else is freaking out about the prep work? That JavaScript module looks intense. David Kim_dev. I'm more worried about the housing situation. SF rent is insane. Rachel_o_dev. Anyone want to form a study group before the program starts? I learn better collaboratively. Alex typed a response. I'm down for a study group. Also happy to help anyone looking for housing. I'm local and know some good neighborhoods. Immediate responses. Sarah_codes. Yes, please. I'm moving from Portland and have no idea where to look. David Kim_dev. Same, coming from Seattle. Any recommendations? And just like that, Alex was part of it. Part of the cohort, part of the conversation, part of the future that had seemed so impossibly distant in their first life. They fell asleep scrolling through messages, their phone clutched in their hand, and their dreams were of code and classrooms and coffee with strangers who would become friends. When they woke up the next morning, there were 17 new text messages, 6 voicemails, and 2 missed calls from numbers they didn't recognize. The family war had begun. But Alex had made their choice. And this time, they weren't backing down. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange duality. On one side, the bootcamp prep work, the growing excitement in the Cohort 47 Discord server that someone had set up, the pre-course modules on HTML, CSS, and basic JavaScript. On the other, the sustained campaign of family guilt, delivered via text, voicemail, strategic crying at family events Alex didn't attend, and one particularly memorable incident where Auntie Wong showed up at Alex's apartment at 7 a.m. with homemade dumplings and tears. I don't understand, Auntie Wong had said, standing in the hallway because Alex hadn't let her in. Why you hate Melissa so much? I don't hate Melissa. Then why won't you help her? Because I have my own life to live. What life? This computer class? You can take computer classes any time. Melissa only gets married once. A pause. Hopefully. Alex had stood firm, had repeated their boundaries. Had watched Auntie Wong cry and had felt terrible, but had not wavered. The dumplings sat in their freezer now, a guilt offering they couldn't bring themselves to eat or throw away. But while the family drama raged, something else was happening. The timeline was diverging in small ways that Alex hadn't anticipated. The first sign came on March 28th. Alex was at a coffee shop, working through a particularly tricky problem in the JavaScript prep module when their phone rang. Marcus. Hey, Alex, I've got great news. That interview I mentioned, they want to meet you tomorrow at 2 p.m. Are you available? In the first timeline, Alex had jumped at this, had gone to the interview, had gotten the offer, had accepted it because they'd already withdrawn from the bootcamp. Actually, Alex said, I'm starting a coding bootcamp next week. I'm not looking for jobs right now. A bootcamp? Which one? Code Catalyst. A pause. Oh, wow. That's actually really competitive. Congratulations. Thanks. Well, if things don't work out, or if you're looking for work after you finish, let me know. I think you'd be great here. After they hung up, Alex sat staring at their laptop screen. In the first timeline, they'd worked at Marcus's company for 2 years, had made friends there, had learned things, had built a professional network. None of that would happen now. Those relationships, those experiences, erased, replaced by whatever would happen in the new timeline. It should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt unmoored. The second sign came on March 30th, 2 days before the bootcamp started. Alex was meeting with the informal study group that had formed from the Discord, Sarah, So David and Rachel gathering at a cafe in the Mission to go over the prep work together. Sarah was exactly as Alex remembered from her LinkedIn photos. Petite, intense, with a nervous energy that manifested in constant hand gestures when she talked about code. David was quieter, thoughtful, the kind of person who listened more than he spoke. Rachel had a laugh that filled the room and a teaching style that made complex concepts feel approachable. They were going through a particularly confusing JavaScript concept, closures, when David said, "Man, I almost didn't apply to this program." "Really?" Rachel looked up from her laptop. "Why not?" "Imposter syndrome mostly. I kept thinking I wasn't good enough, that I'd just get rejected anyway. My girlfriend had to basically force me to submit the application." "I'm glad she did," Sarah said. "We need more people who admit they don't know everything. The overconfident bros are exhausting." Alex listened, but their mind was elsewhere. In the first timeline, they hadn't met these people until… when? Never, actually. They'd followed their careers from a distance, through LinkedIn stalking and conference videos, but they'd never actually met them. This was new. This whole dynamic, this friendship forming, this was a butterfly they couldn't have predicted. "What about you, Alex?" Rachel asked. "What made you apply?" The honest answer was, "I died at 28, full of regrets, and got a chance to do it over. And I knew from my previous life that this cohort would be legendary, so I made sure to choose differently this time." The answer they gave was, "I knew I needed structure. I've been teaching myself for a while, but I learn better with accountability and community." "Same," Sarah said. "I did a year of self-teaching and felt like I was swimming in circles. Like, I could build stuff, but I didn't know if I was building it right, you know?" They worked for another 2 hours until the cafe started putting chairs on tables and making pointed closing time noises. When they parted ways on the sidewalk, Rachel said, "We should keep doing this. During the bootcamp, study sessions, code reviews, whatever." "Definitely," David agreed. "I'm in," Alex said. Walking home, Alex felt a warmth in their chest that had nothing to do with the coffee they'd consumed. This was community. This was the thing they'd missed in the first timeline, the thing that trying to learn alone had never provided. But it also meant the timeline was changing in ways Alex couldn't control. They'd expected to change their own path. That was the whole point. But they hadn't thought about how their choices would ripple outward, affecting other people's trajectories in unpredictable ways. What if their presence in the cohort changed things for Sarah, for David, for Rachel? What if the version of Cohort 47 that emerged in this timeline wasn't the legendary version Alex remembered? The thought kept them awake that night. March 31st, the day before the bootcamp started. Alex spent it in a flurry of preparation, checking and rechecking their laptop setup, reviewing the prep work one more time, laying out clothes for tomorrow like a kid before the first day of school. Their phone buzzed. "Jenny?" "Hey, Mom wants you to come to dinner tonight." "Olive branch situation. You should come." Is it actually an olive branch or is it an ambush? Probably 30% olive branch, 70% ambush. But I'll be there to run interference. Plus, Dad's making his famous black pepper beef. Alex hesitated. They hadn't seen their parents since the acceptance call, hadn't been to the house since the disastrous dinner. Part of them wanted to keep the distance, to maintain boundaries. But another part, the part that remembered Mom in the hospice room, holding their hand, telling them she loved them, wanted to try. "Okay, what time?" 7 p.m. "And Alex, don't let them bully you. You've made your choice. Stand by it." "I will." The house smelled like garlic and pepper and soy sauce when Alex arrived. Dad opened the door, gave them a quick hug that felt both stiff and relieved. "Your mother's in the kitchen," he said quietly. She's calmer than she was, but still hurt. "I didn't mean to hurt her." "I know, but intention and impact aren't always the same thing." Mom was at the stove, her back to the door. She didn't turn when Alex entered. "Hi, Mom." "The rice needs another 10 minutes, Mom said to the stove. "Go sit. Dinner will be ready soon." In the dining room, Jenny was already at the table, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when Alex entered and gave a small smile. "Deep breaths," she mouthed. Dinner was quiet at first. Dad tried to fill the silence with small talk about work, about a leak in the bathroom, about the neighbor's new dog that barked at 5 a.m. Mom ate methodically, not looking at Alex. Finally, Jenny said, "Okay, this is weird. We're all adults here. Can we just talk?" Mom set down her chopsticks. "Fine, Alex, I want to understand." Well, help me understand why you chose this boot camp over your family. I didn't choose it over family. I chose it for myself. Those aren't the same thing. But the result is the same. Melissa is an adult who needs to learn to handle her own problems. She had a panic attack, Alex. She was in the hospital. And that's terrible. I'm genuinely sorry that happened. But I didn't cause it. Her stress caused it. Her inability to delegate caused it. Her perfectionism caused it. Mom's jaw tightened. You sound so cold. I sound like someone with boundaries. There's a difference. When I was your age, Mom said, I gave up a job opportunity to help my mother when she was sick. Family came first. That's what you do. Grandma being sick is different from Melissa's wedding planning crisis. Those aren't equivalent situations. Both are family in need. One was a medical emergency. The other is event planning. Jenny snorted, tried to cover it with a cough. Mom turned to her. You think this is funny? I think Alex has a point. We've all been treating Melissa's wedding like it's a life or death situation when it's literally just a party. It's not just a party. It's a major life event. It's something she should be able to handle herself, or with her bridesmaids, or with a professional she pays, Jenny said. Alex isn't required to sacrifice their own opportunities just because Melissa has bad time management skills. You're both being incredibly selfish. No, Alex said firmly. We're being healthy. There's a difference between supporting family and being consumed by family obligations. I love you. I love Melissa, but I'm not going to light myself on fire to keep everyone else warm. Mom stood up abruptly. I can't do this. I thought you came here to make amends, to find a solution, but you're just here to justify your selfishness? She left the room. A moment later, they heard her bedroom door close. Dad sighed. She'll come around. Eventually. She's hurt because she genuinely believes family should come first. Always. That's how she was raised. I understand that, Alex said, but I wasn't raised that way. You guys always told us to pursue our dreams, to be independent, to stand on our own. I'm doing exactly what you taught me. You're right, Dad said. You are. And I'm proud of you for it, even if I wish it wasn't causing so much family pain. They finished dinner in relative peace. Dad talked about the boot camp. I asked technical questions he only half understood, expressed genuine interest in Alex's plans. Jenny told stories about her own work drama, making them laugh. When Alex left, Dad walked them to the door. Your mother will forgive you, he said. It might take time, but she will. Just don't let the silence make you second-guess yourself. You made the right choice. You really think so? I know so. I've watched you for 22 years. I've seen you put everyone else first. It's time you put yourself first. Your mother will understand that eventually. Alex hugged him, and this time the hug felt real. Driving home, they thought about timelines and choices and the cost of changing course. In the first timeline, they'd prioritized family peace, had been the good child, the helpful cousin, the reliable one. And their reward had been, what? A life half lived, opportunities missed, a hospice bed at 28. This version was messier, more painful, but it was also more honest. Alex got home at 10 p.m. They had 12 hours until the boot camp started. They should sleep, should rest, should be fresh for tomorrow. Instead, they opened their laptop and started going through the JavaScript modules one more time. Not because they needed to, they'd already completed all the prep work, but because doing something productive felt better than sitting with the emotional residue of the evening. At midnight, their phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Melissa. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for the panic attack, for putting so much pressure on you, for making my wedding your problem. Jason helped me find a new coordinator, a professional one, and I'm going to therapy to work on my anxiety. So, you were right. I needed to handle my own shit. Good luck with your boot camp. I hope it's everything you wanted it to be. Alex read the message 3 times. In the first timeline, Melissa had never apologized, had never acknowledged that Alex had sacrificed anything, had just accepted the help as if it were owed. This was new. This was different. Alex typed back, "Thank you for saying that. I hope your wedding is beautiful, and I'm glad you're getting help with the anxiety. That's really brave." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Can we still be friends? Eventually, when I'm less of a mess? Of course, your family. I love you even when you drive me crazy. Same. Now, go to sleep. You have a big day tomorrow." Alex set the phone down and realized that they were crying. Not from sadness, but from something more complicated. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or the simple recognition that relationships could heal, that choices could have better outcomes than expected, that standing firm didn't always mean standing alone. They fell asleep at 1 a.m. and woke at 6 a.m. to their alarm, feeling simultaneously exhausted and electric with anticipation. April 1st, 2019. The first day of Code Catalyst Bootcamp, Cohort 47. The first day of Alex's new future. The Code Catalyst building was in Soma, a repurposed warehouse with exposed brick and the kind of aggressively modern furniture that tech companies use to signal innovation. Alex arrived 15 minutes early, laptop bag heavy on their shoulder, and stood outside looking at the entrance. In the first timeline, they'd never walked through these doors, had never climbed these stairs, had never been part of this. Now they took a breath and went inside. The main classroom was on the 3rd floor, a large open space with rows of desks, each with a monitor and ergonomic chair. About 30 people milled around, some clustered in nervous groups, others sitting alone with their laptops. Alex recognized faces from the Discord, from LinkedIn stalking in their previous life, from the study session. Sarah waved from across the room. Alex made their way over. "Can you believe this is actually happening?" Sarah said. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Like, we're really here. This is real." "It's real," Alex confirmed. David joined them, looking pale. "I might throw up. Is that normal? Is first day nausea normal?" "Completely normal," Rachel said, appearing with coffee. "I've already been to the bathroom twice. Nervous bladder." At 9 a.m. sharp, Dr. Patricia Hoffman entered the room. She looked exactly as Alex remembered from the interview. Silver streak in her dark hair, "Code is poetry" pin on her lapel, an energy that commanded attention without demanding it. "Welcome to Code Catalyst," she said, and the room fell silent. "You are Cohort 47. By the end of this program, you will have built full-stack applications, debugged impossible problems, collaborated on projects that will challenge everything you think you know about your own capabilities. Some of you will cry. Most of you will want to quit at least once. All of you will emerge on the other side as developers." She smiled. "But first, introductions. Let's go around the room. Name, background, why, and one thing you're excited about learning." They went in circles, names that Alex knew from LinkedIn, from conference videos, from the imagined version of this cohort they'd constructed during their first life. Each person was more three-dimensional than their profile had suggested. Sarah was a former teacher who wanted to switch careers. David had been a barista who taught himself to code. Rachel had a degree in music theory and saw coding as another form of composition. When it was Alex's turn, they said, "I'm Alex Chen. I studied computer science in college, but felt like I learned more from building things than from classes. I'm excited to learn how to collaborate better, how to code with others instead of just coding alone." Dr. Hoffman nodded approvingly. "Collaboration is one of the most undervalued skills in development." Good answer. The first week was drinking from a fire hose, HTML and CSS fundamentals that Alex already knew, but taught in ways that illuminated gaps in their understanding. JavaScript deep dives that went beyond the basics into closures and prototypes and the event loop. Pair programming exercises where Alex learned as much from their partner's approaches as they did from the problems themselves. Sarah was their partner on day 3. They were working on a function to flatten a nested array, and Sarah kept talking through her thought process out loud, a stream of consciousness debugging that Alex found both fascinating and exhausting. Okay, so if we're recursing, we need a base case, right? And the base case is when the element isn't an array, or when the array is empty. Wait, can you have an empty nested array? Let me check. Alex watched her work, watched the way her mind moved through the problem, and realized that they'd forgotten how to be a beginner. In their first life, they'd learned alone, without anyone to talk through problems with. They'd developed bad habits, shortcuts, a tendency to brute force solutions instead of thinking them through elegantly. Sarah's approach was different, messier, but also more collaborative, more open to iteration. "What do you think?" Sarah asked after typing out a solution. "Does this make sense?" In the first timeline, Alex would have just said yes, even if they weren't sure. Would have avoided conflict, avoided looking stupid. This time, they said, "I think your base case might be wrong. What happens if you pass it an array with only nested empty arrays?" Sarah's eyes widened. "Oh shit, you're right. Okay, Let me. She started refactoring, and Alex watched the code transform into something more robust. Thank you, Sarah said. I would have missed that. That's why we pair, Alex said, echoing something Dr. Hoffman had said. The days blurred together. Morning lectures, afternoon labs, evening study sessions. The Cohort 47 Discord became a constant stream of questions, answers, memes, and encouragement. Alex found themselves staying late most nights, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Because being in the building, surrounded by people who were all struggling toward the same goal, felt like coming home to a place they'd never been. But beneath the excitement, beneath the learning, there was a constant awareness. Alex knew how this story ended. Knew that Sarah would get a job at Google as a machine learning engineer. Knew that David would end up at a startup that would make him wealthy. Knew that Rachel would speak at conferences, would become a voice in the developer community. And that knowledge sat like a weight. On the second Friday, after a particularly brutal week of learning React, a group decided to go out for drinks. Alex almost declined. They were exhausted, and their brain felt like overheated circuits, but Sarah gave them a look. Come on, you need to decompress. We all do. They ended up at a dive bar in the Mission, sitting in a booth that was falling apart, drinking beer that was cheap and cold. The conversation started technical, arguments about the best way to structure components, debates about Redux versus Context API, but gradually softened into personal territory. Can I ask something? Rachel said, slightly tipsy. Why do you all want to do this? Like, really? Not the LinkedIn answer, the real answer. David went first. I was working at a coffee shop and one of the regulars was a developer. She'd come in every morning with her laptop, working remotely, wearing sweatpants, and making more money than my manager. And I thought, I want that freedom. So I taught myself to code, applied here, and here I am. Practical, Sarah said. I respect that. Mine's dumber. I wanted to quit teaching, but I felt like I needed a capital R reason, you know? Like I couldn't just quit because I was unhappy. So I convinced myself I had a passion for coding, applied to boot camps, and now I'm here wondering if I actually like this or if I just needed an exit strategy. Do you like it? Rachel asked. Sarah considered. Yeah, actually I do, more than I expected to. There's something satisfying about making something work, about debugging a problem until it finally clicks. Your turn, Alex, David said. Alex took a drink, buying time. What could they say? That they'd lived this life before, had missed this opportunity the first time, had died full of regrets? I want to build things that matter, they said finally. I got tired of just consuming technology, of being on the outside looking in. I want to be someone who creates, who solves problems, who makes things that people actually use. It was true, even if it wasn't the whole truth. Rachel nodded slowly. I like that. It's earnest. Too many people in tech are here for the money or the prestige or because it's what smart people do, but you actually care about the craft. What about you? Alex asked. Honestly, I'm here because I'm running away from music. I got a degree in music theory, spent 3 years trying to make it work, and realized I was broke and miserable. Coding pays better and has more job security, but... She paused. I'm starting to think there's something musical about it too. The patterns, the structure, the way elegant code has a rhythm to it. They talked until the bar closed, until the bartender started stacking chairs pointedly. Walking back to the BART station, Sarah stumbled slightly and Alex caught her arm. Thanks, Sarah said, for coming out, for being in this cohort. You're good people, Alex Chen. So are you, Sarah Martinez. We're gonna make it, right? Through the boot camp, into jobs, all of it. Alex thought about the LinkedIn profiles they'd memorized, about the futures they knew were waiting. Only, yeah, they said, we're gonna make it. But on the train ride home, Alex's certainty wavered, because in the first timeline, they hadn't been part of this cohort. Their presence was a variable that hadn't existed before. What if their participation changed the dynamic? What if Cohort 47 in this timeline wasn't the legendary version they remembered? The fear gnawed at them through the weekend. Week 3 brought the first major project, build a full-stack application in teams of 3. Alex ended up with Sarah and a guy named Jordan. Quiet, brilliant, the kind of person who solved problems in his head before touching the keyboard. They decided to build a recipe app with meal planning features, simple enough to complete in the time given, complex enough to demonstrate their skills. Alex knew they should hold back. So you should pretend to struggle more than they did. should not reveal that they'd already lived years in the future learning these exact skills. But the muscle memory was too strong. Their fingers moved across the keyboard with a confidence that came from experience, from having debugged these exact errors before. "Whoa," Jordan said, watching Alex refactor a particularly messy piece of code. "How did you know to do that?" Alex scrambled for an explanation. "I read about it in the pre-work, the JavaScript deep dive section." That was in the pre-work? I must have missed it. Sarah was looking at Alex with a strange expression. "You're really good at this." "I've been practicing a lot." "No, I mean, you're better than someone who's been practicing should be." "You code like someone with years of experience." The observation hung in the air. Alex felt exposed, as if Sarah could see through them to the first timeline, to the years of self-teaching and junior developer jobs and desperate upskilling. "I had a lot of time to prepare," Alex said finally. "I wanted to make sure I was ready." It seemed to satisfy them, but Alex was more careful after that, made deliberate mistakes, asked questions they already knew the answers to, tried to calibrate their performance to match expected skill level. It was exhausting. The project presentation went well. Dr. Hoffman praised their clean code and thoughtful architecture. Several classmates asked to look at their GitHub repo afterward. Alex should have felt proud. Instead, they felt like a fraud. That night, so they lay in bed scrolling through the Cohort 47 Discord, reading messages from people who were struggling, who were excited, who were forming friendships and inside jokes and a shared identity as a cohort. They were part of it, but also apart from it. An observer with insider knowledge, a time traveler trying to blend in with natives. Their phone buzzed. "Danny. Hey, remember that November thing you made me promise? I put it in my calendar, but it's labeled Alex's mysterious request. Want to tell me what that's about?" Alex stared at the message. November 12th, the day Danny would die, would have died, might still die if Alex didn't prevent it. "Just trust me on this one. Don't bike that day." "Okay, but you're buying me lunch sometime to explain this weirdness." "Deal." Alex set the phone down and closed their eyes. The weight of foreknowledge was becoming unbearable. They knew too much. About Danny's death, about their classmates' futures, about their own past that might have been. How were they supposed to live in this present when they kept seeing it through the lens of two timelines? The answer came during week 5. During a particularly difficult debugging session, Alex was stuck on a problem. Actually stuck, not pretending, and growing increasingly frustrated. Sarah was their pair for the day, and she watched Alex spiral for about 15 minutes before interrupting. "Okay, stop. You're too in your head. I just can't figure out where the bug is. Because you're trying to hold the entire program in your brain at once. Step back. Start from the beginning. What's the smallest piece you can test?" Alex took a breath. Started over. Broke the problem down into components, tested each one individually, found the bug in a function they'd been sure was working correctly. "There," Sarah said when the test finally passed. "See, sometimes you need fresh eyes. Sometimes you need to forget what you think you know, and just look at what's actually there." The words hit Alex like a revelation. Forget what you think you know, and just look at what's actually there. They'd been so focused on the future they remembered that they'd stopped being present in the future they were building, had been trying to recreate a timeline instead of creating a new one. "You okay?" Sarah asked. "You look like you just had an epiphany." "I did. Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me to be here, in this moment, instead of somewhere else." Sarah looked confused but smiled. "Okay, Buddha. Whatever works." After that, Alex made a conscious effort to be more present, to not think 3 moves ahead, to let themselves be surprised by their classmates, by the lessons, by the unexpected directions conversations took. It helped. The weight didn't disappear, they still knew things they shouldn't, but it became more manageable. Week 8 brought another shift. Dr. Hoffman announced that Google recruiters would be visiting to give a talk about their hiring process and what they looked for in candidates. The room buzzed with excitement. This was it, the first direct connection to the opportunities that waited beyond the bootcamp. Alex sat through the presentation in a daze. The recruiters were younger than they'd expected, enthusiastic about diversity in tech, and excited about bootcamp graduates. They talked about growth mindset and collaboration, and how technical skills mattered less than the ability to learn. During the Q&A, Sarah asked, "What's the realistic timeline for bootcamp grads to get hired?" Like, are we talking months or years? The lead recruiter smiled. Depends on the bootcamp, but Code Catalyst grads, you guys have a good track record. I'd say within 3 months of graduating, most of you will have offers somewhere, some of them from us. After they left, the cohort exploded with energy. People started talking about interview prep, about side projects, about the futures that were suddenly feeling tangible. Alex watched it happen and thought, this is the moment. This is when it starts. The pathway that leads to Google, to success, to the legendary status of Cohort 47. And they were part of it. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying, because now they had to deliver, had to make sure this timeline matched the potential of the one they remembered, had to become the person they'd failed to be the first time. That night, Alex started a journal. Not a detailed record of the future they remembered, that felt too much like cheating, but a log of the present they were experiencing. The lessons learned, the friendships forming, the person they were becoming. The first entry read, April 25th, 2019. I'm 8 weeks into Code Catalyst, 8 weeks into a future I almost didn't choose. Every day I'm learning to code better, but I'm also learning to be present better, to stop living in my head, in timelines that don't exist anymore. Sarah told me today that I'm weirdly wise for someone our age, if only she knew. The truth is, I'm not wise, I'm just scared. Scared of messing this up, scared of changing too much or not changing enough, scared that knowing the future means I'll never be fully in the present. But I'm also grateful for this chance, for these people, for getting to walk through doors I closed the first time. Tomorrow we start learning databases. I remember this being hard. This time, I'm going to let it be hard instead of pretending I already know everything. This time, I'm going to be a beginner. Alex closed the journal and felt something shift in their chest. A loosening of the constant tension they'd been carrying. They didn't have to be perfect. Didn't have to replicate the exact timeline they remembered. Didn't have to carry the weight of foreknowledge alone. They just had to be here, present, learning, growing. The rest would follow. By week 10, Alex had fallen into a rhythm. Code all day, study sessions in the evening, occasional hangouts with the cohort on weekends. The family drama had quieted, not resolved, but stabilized into a détente where Mom would text occasionally about neutral topics, and Alex would respond politely. Melissa's wedding was in 2 weeks. Alex hadn't been invited to the bachelor party or the bridal shower, but they were still on the guest list for the ceremony. A small mercy, or perhaps just avoiding the optics of excluding family. The bootcamp had moved into advanced topics. Complex algorithms, system design, authentication, and security. Alex found themselves genuinely challenged for the first time, struggling with concepts that they hadn't fully mastered even in their first timeline. It was humbling and strangely liberating. On a Thursday evening, the study group was at Sarah's apartment, a tiny studio in the sunset that she shared with approximately 7 million books and a cat named Algorithm, working through a particularly nasty problem involving binary trees. I hate trees, Rachel announced, throwing her pencil down. Why did we have to invent trees? Lists were fine. We didn't need trees. Trees are elegant, David argued. They're literally how computers organize information. Then computers are wrong, Alex laughed, then stopped abruptly, because they just had a flash of memory from the first timeline, not from their own life, but from a conference video they'd watched. Rachel on stage giving a talk titled, Why I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Tree. It had been funny and insightful and had gone semi-viral in developer circles. But that talk wouldn't happen for another 3 years, and Alex had just heard the seed of it. Rachel's genuine frustration with trees, her dramatic declaration that they were unnecessary. What if Alex mentioned it? What if they said, you should turn that into a conference talk? Would they be helping Rachel achieve her future? Or would they be robbing her of the organic development that led to that achievement? The weight of foreknowledge pressed down again. You okay? Sarah asked. You look weird. Just thinking. About trees? About the future? Sarah snorted. Optimistic. I can barely think about next week's project, let alone the future. They worked for another hour, finally cracking the problem through collective effort. When they broke for the night, David lingered while Rachel and Sarah said their goodbyes. Can I ask you something? David said quietly. Sure. Do you ever feel like you're in the wrong timeline? Alex's heart skipped. What? Like there's a version of your life that should have happened but didn't. And now you're in this alternate version, and you're not sure if it's better or worse, just different. Alex stared at him. Why are you asking that? I broke up with my girlfriend last week, the one who convinced me to apply to the bootcamp, and now I'm wondering if I made the wrong choice, if I should have stayed with her, skipped the bootcamp, lived that other life. David rubbed his face. Sorry, this is heavy. I've been in my own head too much. No, Alex took a breath. I get it. I think about alternate timelines all the time. The choices we don't make, the paths we don't take. It's easy to wonder if the grass is greener in the life we didn't choose. How do you deal with it? I remind myself that the only life I have is this one, right now. The what-ifs are just stories I tell myself. They're not real. David nodded slowly. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Alex. After he left, Alex sat in Sarah's apartment for a few more minutes. Sarah was in the kitchen feeding Algorithm, humming something that might have been off-key Beyonce. You're being weird again, Sarah called out. I'm just tired. Bullshit. You've got that look you get when you're overthinking something. Sarah emerged from the kitchen, holding Algorithm like a fuzzy baby. She sat down across from Alex. Talk to me. What's going on in that brain of yours? Alex wanted to tell her everything. About the first timeline, about dying at 28. Oh, about knowing that she would become a machine learning engineer at Google, but being terrified that their presence might somehow derail that future. Instead, they said, do you ever wonder if you're on the right path? Like, really on it, not just hoping you are? Every single day, Sarah said without hesitation. Teaching was safe, predictable. I had summers off and decent health insurance and a union. This. She gestured vaguely at her laptop. This is terrifying. I'm learning a completely new field at 26. I could fail. I could graduate and not get hired. I could be making the biggest mistake of my life. But you're still doing it. Because safe doesn't mean happy. And I'd rather fail at something I'm excited about than succeed at something that makes me miserable. Alex felt something loosen in their chest. Oh, that's really brave. Or really stupid. Time will tell, Sarah smiled. Why, are you having doubts? Not about the bootcamp, more like, I'm afraid I'll mess it up, that I'll make choices that seem right in the moment, but turn out to be wrong in retrospect. Welcome to being human. We're all just guessing and hoping for the best. But what if I know, what if I think I know what the right choice is, but making that choice hurts people I care about? Sarah was quiet for a moment, stroking Algorithm's fur. Then you make the choice anyway, because you can't live your life for other people, even people you love. You can only live it for yourself and hope they understand. It was the same advice Danny had given, the same truth Alex kept coming back to. But it still didn't make the choices easier. The next week, Melissa's wedding happened. So Alex went alone. Jenny had to work, and sat in the back during the ceremony. The venue was beautiful. The flowers were perfect. The event coordinator Melissa had hired had clearly done excellent work. Melissa looked radiant in her dress, crying happy tears as she said her vows. Jason looked at her like she was the only person in the room. It was sweet, genuine, the kind of moment that makes you believe in love. Alex felt a complicated tangle of emotions. Happiness for Melissa, relief that the wedding had worked out without their help, a small, petty satisfaction at being proven right that it would all be fine, and underneath it all, grief. Not for the wedding they'd missed planning, but for the first timeline version of Melissa. So who they'd helped and supported and watched struggle with motherhood and marriage and all the normal complications of adult life. That Melissa was gone now, erased, replaced by this version who was starting fresh with better coping mechanisms and a therapist. Was that better? Probably. But it was also loss. After the ceremony at the reception, Auntie Wang cornered Alex by the dessert table. You came, she said, sounding surprised. Of course I came. She's family. Even though you refused to help. I didn't refuse to help. I refused to sacrifice my own opportunities. There's a difference. Auntie Wang looked like she wanted to argue, but then Melissa appeared, still glowing, slightly tipsy. Alex, you made it. She hugged them, nearly spilling her champagne. Thank you for coming, and thank you for what you said, about handling my own shit. You were right. I needed to hear it. I'm glad it helped. The wedding is beautiful, by the way. It really is, isn't it? And I did it. Well, mostly the coordinator did it, but I helped and I didn't have a panic attack. She laughed. Okay, I had one small panic attack, but it was manageable. Growth. Alex hugged her back, feeling some of the tension from the past months finally dissipate. Later, dancing to music that was too loud, Alex checked their phone and saw a message from Sarah. Jordan just told me he's dropping out, says the bootcamp is too intense and he's going back to his old job. I'm freaking out. Can we lose people this close to the end? Alex's blood went cold. Jordan. They scrolled through their memory of the first timeline, trying to remember, had Jordan been part of the legendary Cohort 47? They couldn't remember. He'd been in their study group, they'd built the recipe app together, but in the timeline where Alex hadn't attended, what had happened to Jordan? This was the butterfly effect. Alex's presence had changed something, and now Jordan was dropping out. And who knew what else might be different? Alex left the reception early, drove home too fast, and immediately opened their laptop. Searched for Jordan Black Code Catalyst but found nothing, because in this timeline, he hadn't graduated yet, hadn't built a career yet, was just a guy who'd decided bootcamp wasn't for him. They pulled up their old memory, the LinkedIn profiles they'd stalked obsessively in the first timeline. Had there been a Jordan Black? They couldn't be sure. The cohort had been 30 people, and Alex had mainly focused on the ones who'd ended up at big-name companies, the ones with public profiles and conference talks. Jordan might have been there, or he might not have. And now Alex's presence had created a variable that could change everything. They spent the rest of the night spiraling, imagining all the ways their choices could have cascading effects. What if their participation made the cohort less successful? What if they somehow prevented Sarah from getting her Google job? What if they'd broken the timeline beyond repair? At 3 a.m., exhausted and anxious, Alex finally fell asleep at their desk. They woke up to their phone ringing. Sarah. Did you see the Discord? Sarah's voice was excited, not panicked. No, I just woke up. Dr. Hoffman posted. Google is doing early interviews for current bootcamp students. 3 weeks before graduation. Alex's heart rate spiked. What? I know. Apparently they're so impressed with Code Catalyst grads that they're willing to interview people before they even finish. This is insane. This might be our shot, Alex. The timeline was converging again. Different path, same destination. Maybe Jordan dropping out wouldn't matter. Maybe the cohort would still achieve everything Alex remembered, just with slightly different players. Or maybe Alex was fooling themselves, trying to force a future that didn't want to repeat itself. Are you going to apply? Alex asked. Are you kidding? Of course I'm applying. We all are. David's already updating his resume. Rachel's redoing her portfolio site. You need to apply too. Yeah, okay. After hanging up, Alex sat with the phone in their hand, thinking about paths and choices, and the impossibility of knowing if you're making the right decision until it's too late to change it. They'd saved the bootcamp opportunity, had stood up to family pressure, had made it to week 11 with their cohort, learning and growing and becoming a developer. But they'd also changed things. Jordan was gone. The wedding had happened differently. Small variables that might add up to a completely different outcome. And there was still November 12th looming, still Danny's life hanging in the balance. Still the question of how much Alex could change before they broke something unfixable. The journal entry that night was short. June 1st, 2019. I thought knowing the future would make choices easier. Instead, it makes them impossibly complex. Every decision carries weight I can't fully measure. Every change ripples outward in ways I can't predict. Jordan dropped out today. I don't know if he was part of the original cohort or not. I can't remember. The future is becoming less clear the longer I live in this present. Maybe that's good. Maybe certainty was never the goal. Maybe the point is to make the best choices I can with the information I have and trust that the future will work itself out. Or maybe I'm just tired of carrying this weight. Google interviews start next week. Sarah's excited. David's nervous. I'm both, and also terrified that this is where the timeline diverges too far to recover. I miss knowing how things end. But maybe not knowing is the whole point of living. Alex closed the journal and looked at the calendar. 5 months since waking up in their 22-year-old body. 5 months of second chances and difficult choices, and the slow realization that you can't control everything, even when you've lived it before. They had 5 weeks until bootcamp graduation, 5 months until November 12th, 5 years until the cancer diagnosis that might or might not happen this time. And between now and then, an infinite number of choices to make, without a map, without certainty, without the comfortable knowledge of how things would turn out. Just like everyone else, just like it should be. The Google interviews came fast, too fast, a blur of technical screens and behavioral questions and coding challenges that Alex completed with the double-edged sword of experience. They knew the patterns, recognized the classic problems, but had to carefully calibrate their performance to seem prepared without seeming suspiciously over-prepared. Sarah bombed her first technical interview. She called Alex afterward, crying. I froze. He asked me about optimizing a search algorithm and my brain just stopped working. I knew the answer. I've solved this exact problem before, but I just froze. Did you tell the recruiter? Yeah, she said I could retake it in a week. But Alex, what if I freeze again? What if I'm not actually good enough for this? In the first timeline, Sarah had gotten the Google offer. Alex knew this, had memorized her success story, her trajectory from teacher to engineer. But that was a different Sarah, who hadn't bombed her first interview, who hadn't called Alex crying at midnight. You're good enough, Alex said firmly. You're more than good enough. You had a bad day. That's allowed. The retake is your chance to prove it was a fluke. But what if? No what ifs. You're taking the retake, you're going to prepare like crazy, and you're going to ace it. I'll help you. We'll do mock interviews every day until then, if that's what it takes. They did. Every evening for a week, Alex and Sarah sat in coffee shops running through algorithms problems, behavioral questions, system design scenarios. Alex pushed her, challenged her, made her explain her thinking out loud until the words came naturally. The night before Sarah's retake, they were at Alex's apartment, going through one last problem, when Sarah suddenly said, Can I ask you something personal? Sure. How do you do it? The confidence thing. You always seem so sure of yourself. Like you know exactly where you're going. Alex almost laughed. If only she knew. I'm not confident. I'm just good at faking it. No, that's not. You're different from the rest of us. You code like someone who's been doing this for years. You explain concepts like a teacher. You make decisions without second-guessing yourself. What's your secret? The secret was dying at 28 and getting a second chance. The secret was having already lived through the uncertainty and regret and coming back to fix it. The secret was knowing, or thinking they knew, how things would turn out. But Alex couldn't say any of that. I decided a while ago that I was tired of letting fear make my choices, they said instead. I was tired of playing small, of apologizing for taking up space, of waiting for permission to pursue what I wanted. So I just stopped. I started acting like I deserved to be here, and eventually it started to feel true. Sarah was quiet for a moment. That's really brave. Or really stubborn, depends on the day. Sarah aced her retake, got the offer 2 weeks later, came to Alex's apartment with champagne and tears, and a card that said, Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Alex hugged her and felt the weight of responsibility intensify. They'd helped Sarah succeed, but what if their help had changed something crucial? What if Sarah was supposed to struggle more, learn different lessons, take a different path? What if Alex was playing God with other people's lives without meaning to? The Cohort graduation was on June 28th, 2019. A Friday evening ceremony with families invited. Everyone dressed up, Doctor. Hoffman giving a speech about growth and resilience and the importance of lifelong learning. Mom and Dad came. Jenny came. They sat in the back, and afterward Mom hugged Alex tight and whispered, I'm proud of you, in a voice that sounded like forgiveness. I know I was hard on you, Mom said, about the wedding, about family obligations. Your father helped me understand that I was asking too much, that you needed to live your own life. I'm sorry for hurting you, Alex said. That was never my intention. I know, and I'm sorry for making you feel like you had to choose between family and yourself. That wasn't fair. They stood in the parking lot as the sun set over San Francisco, turning the sky orange and purple, and Alex felt something shift. Not everything healed, not all wounds closed, but a start. A possibility of different dynamics. Jenny appeared with champagne she'd smuggled in. To Alex, the graduate, may your code compile and your bugs be easily found. They drank from plastic cups, and Dad made a toast about being proud, and Mom cried a little, and it was imperfect and complicated and real. That night, Alex's phone exploded with messages from the cohort. Sarah had her Google offer. David had gotten one from Facebook. Rachel had 3 different offers and was trying to decide. Others had offers from startups, from established companies, from places that would become footnotes in tech history. The employment rate was tracking at 92%, higher than any previous Code Catalyst cohort. Cohort 47 was living up to its potential. Alex should have felt triumphant. Instead, they felt unmoored. Because in successfully recreating the legendary cohort, they'd also proven they could change things. And if they could change this, what else might they change? What else might they break? July passed in a haze of job applications and interviews. Alex got offers from 3 companies, including one from a startup that would go bankrupt in 8 months. They knew this, and one from an established company that would still be thriving in 2025. They knew this, too. They accepted the stable option, celebrated with the cohort, started work in August, and tried not to think about November 12th approaching like a freight train. By October, Alex had settled into their new job. The work was challenging, but manageable. The team was supportive, the salary was better than anything they'd made in the first timeline. They were living the life they'd wanted, the career they'd worked for. But the date loomed. Alex called Danny more frequently, made plans to hang out, asked casual questions about his route home from work, his biking habits, his schedule for mid-November. "You're being weird again," Danny said during a coffee meetup in late October. "What's going on? And don't say nothing, because you've been weird since March. I'm worried about you." "Why?" "Just a feeling, a bad feeling. Please, on November 12th, don't bike home from work. Take the bus or get a ride or walk. Just don't bike that specific day." Danny studied Alex's face. "This is about that thing you made me promise months ago?" "Yes." "Alex, what do you know that I don't know?" "I just have a really bad feeling about that day. Please, humor me." "Okay. But you're buying me dinner sometime and explaining this whole thing, because this level of paranoia isn't healthy." November 12th, 2019 came on a Tuesday. Alex called in sick to work, spent the day pacing their apartment, checking their phone obsessively, waiting for news that might come, that had come in the first timeline. At 5:30 p.m., the approximate time of the accident in the first timeline, Alex called Danny. "Hey, weird request," Alex said. "Can you prove to me you're not on your bike right now?" "What?" "Alex, I'm literally at the office, and I took the bus this morning like you asked, see?" The sound of a video call connecting, Danny's face appearing on screen, very much alive and very confused. "I'm at my desk, not on my bike." "Are you okay?" Yes, sorry, thank you for humoring me." "Dude, you're freaking me out." "So, what was supposed to happen today?" Nothing happened, that's the point." At 6:15 p.m., Alex's phone rang. Unknown number. They answered with shaking hands. "Is this Alex Chen?" A woman's voice, official sounding. "Yes?" "This is Officer Martinez with SFPD. Do you know a Daniel Park?" Alex's heart stopped. "Yes, why? What happened?" "There's been an accident. A hit and run involving a cyclist at 16th and Valencia. We found your number in his phone as an emergency contact." The room spun. No, this wasn't supposed to happen. Danny wasn't supposed to be biking. Danny had promised. Is he alive?" "He's being transported to SF General now. You should get there as soon as you can." Alex grabbed their keys and ran. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Danny was in surgery, broken leg, possible internal injuries. They wouldn't know more for hours. Alex sat in the waiting room, hands shaking, mind racing. This wasn't supposed to happen. They'd changed it. They'd warned Danny, gotten him to promise, checked in with him today. How had this still happened? At 9 p.m., a doctor emerged. "Are you here for Daniel Park?" "Yes, is he?" "He's stable. Lucky, actually. The injuries look worse than they are. Broken tibia, some bruised ribs, a concussion, but he'll recover fully." Alex's legs gave out. They sat down hard on a waiting room chair. "Can I see him?" "He's still groggy from anesthesia, but yes, room 304. Danny looked small in the hospital bed, one leg in a cast, bruises blooming across his face. But he was alive, breathing. His eyes opened when Alex entered. "Hey," Danny said, voice rough. "Before you say I told you so, I'm not gonna say that. What happened? You said you took the bus." "I did take the bus this morning, but I left my laptop at the office and had to go back for it. I wasn't thinking, I just grabbed my bike because it was faster and..." He winced. "Some asshole in an SUV ran a red light, didn't even stop." Alex pulled up a chair, sat down heavily. "You're alive. Yeah, thanks to some good Samaritans who called 911, doctor says I'll be fine. Few weeks of recovery, some physical therapy. He looked at Alex. You knew. Somehow you knew this was going to happen. I had a bad feeling. Bullshit. Nobody has bad feelings this specific. What aren't you telling me? Alex met his eyes, saw the confusion, the fear, the trust that had been there since they'd met freshman year of college, and made a choice. If I told you the truth, you wouldn't believe me. Try me. I've lived this year before. All of it. I died in 2025 and woke up in March as my 22-year-old self. I remembered that you died on November 12th, 2019, biking home from work. I tried to prevent it by getting you to promise not to bike that day. But the timeline, it found a way. You still ended up on your bike. Danny stared at them. Then he started laughing, which turned into a wince because of his ribs. Ow, okay. Either you're having a mental health crisis or you're telling the truth, and both options are equally wild. I know how it sounds. Do you, though? Because it sounds completely batshit. Danny shifted in bed, grimacing. But there were these moments, starting in March, when you'd know things you shouldn't know. When you'd have this look. Like you were seeing something the rest of us couldn't see. I thought you were just anxious, or psychic, or really good at pattern recognition. I'm not psychic, I just remember. Remember dying? Yes. And in that timeline, I died today. Yes, a drunk driver, hit and run. You were biking home from work. Danny was quiet for a long moment. And instead, I'm here, banged up but alive. Yes. Because you warned me. I tried. I'm sorry I didn't try harder. I should have. Alex, stop. You saved my life. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not the way you planned, but I'm alive. That's what matters. Alex felt tears start to fall. In the first timeline, I went to your funeral. I stood in the back because I couldn't handle seeing the casket. Your mom spoke and she could barely get through it. And I kept thinking, if only I'd texted you that day. If only I'd asked you to grab drinks after work. If only I'd done something differently, you'd still be alive. And now I am. You did something differently. It worked. But what if next time it doesn't? What if I can't save everyone? What if knowing the future just means watching it happen anyway? Danny reached out, awkwardly because of the IV line, and took Alex's hand. Then you live with it, like everyone else does. Nobody gets to save everyone, Alex. Not even weird time-traveling versions of themselves. You do your best, and you hope it's enough. They sat in silence for a while, holding hands, listening to the hospital sounds around them. So, Danny said eventually, if you really are from the future, tell me something. Do I end up okay? Whoa, in the timeline where I don't die? You don't exist in that timeline. You died here. Right. Okay, what about you? Do you end up okay? Alex thought about the hospice bed, the cancer, the regrets. No, not in the first timeline. That's why I'm trying to fix it. And is it working? I don't know. Some things are better. Some things are different. I don't know if I'm fixing things or just rearranging them. Well, for what it's worth, I vote for this timeline. The one where I'm alive, even if I have a broken leg and look like I lost a fight with a truck. You did lose a fight with a truck. Technically an SUV. Let's be accurate here. Alex laughed despite everything, and Danny squeezed their hand. Thank you, Danny said seriously, for whatever you did, for giving me a heads up, for caring enough to try to change things. Thank you. The weight on Alex's chest didn't disappear, but it shifted slightly, became more bearable. They'd saved Danny. Not perfectly, not without complications, but he was alive. It was enough. It had to be enough, because the alternative, living with foreknowledge but being helpless to change anything, would be unbearable. Alex stayed at the hospital until Danny fell asleep, then drove home through empty streets, thinking about timelines and choices, and the impossibility of ever knowing if you've made the right decision. The journal entry that night was different. November 12th, 2019, Danny's alive. Injured, but alive. I didn't prevent the accident perfectly, but I prevented the outcome I was trying to prevent. Maybe that's the lesson. Maybe I can't control everything. Can't prevent every bad thing from happening. But I can influence outcomes, can nudge the timeline toward better versions. I told Danny the truth. I don't know if that was smart or reckless, but it felt necessary. Carrying this alone was becoming unbearable. 5 years until the cancer diagnosis, 5 years to build a different life, 5 years to make choices that lead somewhere other than a hospice bed at 28, I don't know if I can change that outcome. But I know I have to try. For now, Danny's alive. The bootcamp succeeded. My career is on track. My family relationships are healing. Small victories, incremental changes, a life being lived instead of just survived. It's not the life I had before. It's not the life I imagined when I woke up on March 15th. But it's mine. And I'm choosing it. Every day. Every decision. That has to count for something. Team Alex closed the journal and looked out the window at the city lights, thinking about futures and pasts and the infinite permutations of now. Somewhere out there, Sarah was probably coding late into the night at her new Google job. David was building something brilliant at Facebook. Rachel was preparing for her first conference talk. The cohort was scattering into their various futures, carrying with them the bonds they'd formed, the skills they'd learned, the person they'd helped each other become. And Alex was here, in this apartment, in this timeline, having saved one life and changed another and built something that felt finally like it might be worth keeping. The future was uncertain, but it always had been. The difference now was that Alex knew how to sit with that uncertainty, how to make choices without guarantees, how to live forward instead of looking back. It was enough. For now, it was enough. Epilogue 5 years forward, March 15th, 2024. Alex sat in the audience of a tech conference, watching Rachel give her keynote address about the intersection of music and code. She was brilliant, funny, commanding the stage the way she'd commanded their study sessions 5 years ago. Beside Alex, Sarah leaned over and whispered, "Can you believe that's the same person who once threw a pencil and declared that trees were evil?" Alex smiled. Character growth. They'd all grown. Sarah was a senior engineer at Google now, working on ML optimization, exactly as Alex had known she would be. David had sold his startup and was teaching himself to paint. Jordan, who dropped out of the bootcamp but kept learning independently, was a successful freelancer with a client list that included several Fortune 500 companies. And Alex was alive. It was 2 weeks past what would have been the 5-year anniversary of their rebirth. 3 months past the date when they'd been diagnosed with cancer in the first timeline. The diagnosis hadn't come this time. Alex had gone to the doctor for the screening anyway, armed with foreknowledge, ready to catch it early. But the tests had come back clean. No cancer, no terminal diagnosis, no countdown clock. The doctor had seemed puzzled by Alex's relief, by the way they'd cried in the examination room upon hearing the news. "Your risk factors are low," the doctor had said. "I wouldn't have expected any different results." But Alex knew better. Knew that in another timeline, in another version of their life, those tests had told a different story. This timeline, this life built on different choices, had diverged enough to change even that. After Rachel's talk, the old cohort went out for drinks. They did this quarterly now, whenever schedules aligned, a tradition born from those early study sessions, sustained by genuine affection and shared history. "To Cohort 47, David toasted. "Still legendary." They clinked glasses, and Alex thought about the word legendary. In the first timeline, they'd tracked the cohort from outside, had watched them become successful through LinkedIn posts and conference videos, had imagined what it would have been like to be part of that success. Now they were part of it, had helped create it. And the reality was messier and more beautiful than the imagined version. "Hey, Alex," Sarah said. "You doing okay? You've got that look again." "What look?" "The one where you're somewhere else, thinking about alternate timelines or whatever philosophical thing you think about." Alex smiled. "I'm good, just grateful." "For what?" "For all of this. For you guys. For getting to be here." Rachel raised her glass. "Sappy. I love it. To being here." They drank and talked and laughed, and for a few hours Alex wasn't thinking about timelines or choices or the weight of foreknowledge. They were just here, present, part of this moment, this friendship, this life. Later, walking back to their apartment, a nicer place now, in a better neighborhood, affordable on their senior developer salary, Alex stopped at the intersection of 16th and Valencia, the spot where Danny had been hit. Danny, who was in Seattle now, working at Microsoft, alive and thriving and occasionally sending Alex random 2 a.m. texts about code problems or philosophical questions about the nature of time. Danny, who knew the truth, who'd kept Alex's secret for 5 years, who checked in regularly to ask, "How's the time traveler doing?" Alex looked up at the streetlight, watching the signal cycle from red to green, and thought about all the moments that had led here. The bootcamp acceptance, the fight with their family, the choice to prioritize their own future over familial obligation. The butterfly effects had been enormous. Relationships had shifted. Careers had changed. Even small things had rippled outward in unexpected ways. But Alex was here, alive, healthy, part of a community they'd chosen. It had been worth it. Every difficult conversation, every moment of guilt, every uncertainty, worth it. Their phone buzzed. Mom, with a photo from Jenny's wedding in Singapore, an event that had happened last month, different from the timeline where Jenny had moved away to escape family pressure. In this timeline, Jenny had stayed closer, had built better boundaries with the family, had invited everyone to her wedding, and meant it. The photo showed Alex dancing with Melissa, both laughing. Melissa's son, 3 years old now, was running between them. The wedding coordinator crisis had become family legend, the story they told at gatherings with rueful laughter. Remember when Melissa had a meltdown because her wedding coordinator quit? Remember when Alex said no and we all acted like it was a betrayal? Remember when we realized Alex was right? Healing wasn't linear. The family dynamics still had complicated moments, but they were better, different, built on harder-won mutual respect. Alex pocketed their phone and kept walking. At home, they opened their laptop, force of habit, even at 11 p.m., and saw an email notification from danny.park@microsoft.com. Subject, random 3 a.m. thought. It's 3 a.m. here, midnight there, close enough. Hey, time traveler, been thinking about something. You saved my life 5 years ago by giving me information from the future. But what if the real gift wasn't the information? What if it was just that you cared enough to try, like in the original timeline? Would I have rather died not knowing someone loved me enough to break the laws of physics trying to save me? Or is this timeline, where I'm alive but injured and where you're carrying all this weight about changing things, actually better? I think it's better. Injury heals, broken legs mend. But knowing that someone cared that much, that stays. Anyway, I'm rambling. I should sleep. But I wanted to say thank you. Again. For the 1,000th time, you changed my timeline in the best possible way. Danny P.S. Do you ever think about the version of you that didn't get a second chance? Like, there's a timeline where you died in that hospice bed and that was it. No do-overs, no rebirth. That Alex just ended. Do you think about them? Alex did think about them. Often. That first timeline Alex who'd made different choices. Who'd lived a shorter life. Who'd died full of regrets. They thought about them with compassion now instead of shame. That Alex had done their best with the information they had been kind and helpful and had tried to be a good person. They'd just prioritized the wrong things, and they'd paid for it with time. The only resource that actually mattered. This Alex, second timeline Alex, reborn Alex, Alex who chose differently, had been given something impossible, a second chance, and they'd used it. Not perfectly, not without casualties and complications, but they'd used it, had built a life worth living, had saved a friend, had chosen themselves without apologizing for it, had learned to sit with uncertainty, to make choices without guarantees, to live in the present instead of the past or future. It was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Alex closed their laptop and walked to the window, looking out at the city they'd lived in twice now. Once as someone dying slowly of missed opportunities, once as someone actively building the life they wanted. Same city, different Alex, better timeline. They thought about Cohort 47, scattered across the world now, building things and breaking things, and becoming the developers they'd fought so hard to become. They thought about family dinners that were easier now, relationships that had been tested and survived stronger. They thought about Danny in Seattle, alive because Alex had cared enough to try. They thought about the cancer diagnosis that hadn't come, the death that hadn't happened, the second chance that had actually changed things. And they thought about tomorrow, a normal Monday, full of code reviews and stand-ups and lunch with colleagues. Nothing special, nothing legendary. Just another day in a life being lived instead of survived. Just another choice to keep moving forward, keep building, keep becoming. Just another moment in the timeline Alex had fought so hard to create. It was enough. It would always be enough. Because this time, they were here to live it.